Hey everyone, welcome back to the problem with and the off the record section. I promise. It's been a minute since I sat down. In this case, standing up to record one of these. And honestly, it's been one of those seasons where life just keeps throwing curveballs, and you're standing there trying to juggle work, responsibility, and sanity all at once. Now, this episode is a little different. It's part update, part reflection, and part therapy session for me, and maybe for a few of you listening who are in the same boat. Because I want to talk about what it's really like to walk into a program or a school or any organization that has a lot of turnover, and then you try to help fix it. Now, I don't mean fix it like some superhero story where you show up and save the day. I mean, fix it in the real world sense, where you're trying to rebuild trust, reestablish expectations, and make sure the thing doesn't collapse the second you turn your back. That's not easy work. Like, you come in with all this energy and hope, thinking, all right, let's do this. Let's make things better for the kids, for the program, for the community. And for about 5 minutes, everyone's excited. You're the fresh start, the new energy, the person who's going to make it all work again. But the second the change becomes real, the second accountability starts showing up, everything shifts. People get uncomfortable. Students test you. Adults second guess you. And suddenly you realize people love the idea of change until it really affects them. Now, this episode for every teacher, coach, director, or leaders who've ever tried to rebuild something that has been broken for too long. It's for the people who show up every day knowing that the hardest part isn't the job itself. It's undoing the damage that's inconsistency leaves behind. So yeah, today's personal. It's not about calling anyone out. It's not about blame. It's about what it feels like to try to do the right thing when everyone around you is used to the wrong thing being normal. Now let's talk about it. The exhaustion, the small victories, and the quiet, unglamorous process of starting over. And one of the hardest things to explain to anyone outside education is what it feels like to walk into a place that has been reset over and over again. It's like walking into a house where every few years someone new moves in, paints over the walls, moves the furniture, starts to remodel, and then leaves halfway through. And by the time you arrive, nothing matches. The foundation's cracked and you can't tell what the original blueprint was supposed to look like. And that's what high turnover does to a program. It doesn't just change faces, it erases stability. You inherit ghosts, old habits, half-finished systems, leftover expectations. You have students who remember how the last person ran things, others who only know chaos, and some who've stopped caring because they are tired of getting attached to something that never lasts. And that's the part nobody prepares you for. Earning trust from kids who've stopped believing. You can have the best vision in the world, but none of it matters until they see what you're not going. It matters until they see that you're not going anywhere. Trying to get that figured out there. And even then, they'll test you. Not because they're bad kids, but because they've learned that every adult eventually leaves. So they poke their boundaries. They push. They wait to see if you'll fold. And that's not, it is defiance, but it's also defense. It's them saying, are you really going to stay when things get hard? And those first few weeks, the energy is great. Everyone's on board, excited for change. But the second those changes start to mean something, the moment accountability kicks in, the resistance starts to show up. And not because people hate improvement, it's because when things have been unstable for a long time, chaos becomes comfortable. You start hearing, that's not how we used to do it. And you're thinking, yeah, that's the problem. But structure isn't punishment. Accountability isn't control. These things exist so kids can succeed without depending on whoever's in charge next year. Still, to some, it feels like loss. It feels like you're taking away familiarity. And when people get used to dysfunction, normal starts to feel suspicious. Like consistency looks like strict, standards look unfair. But here's the truth. Kids crave it. Even when they fight it, they want stability, they want accountability, they want that. They might grumble, they might roll their eyes, but deep down, they want to believe again. And you can feel it when it starts happening, when rehearsals start to click, when pride starts creeping back in. Growth is quiet like that. Resistance is loud, but growth whispers. I've learned that walking into a high turnover environment isn't just about teaching content. It's about teaching belief. Believe that stability is possible. Believe that high expectations mean someone cares. Believe that rules exist because people matter. And the funny part is, no one claps for you when you build structure. Nobody cheers when you tell kids, hey, you need your music. You need to be on time. You need to show respect. Because foundations aren't glamorous, but they are the only thing that really lasts. Every time I put something in place, a system, a rule, or a process, I remind myself it's not about control, it's about care. Because if I really care about these students, I can't let them think chaos is okay. Now, high turnover doesn't just wear down a program, it wears down people. It teaches everyone to operate in survival mode. So when you walk in talking about goals, structure, and standards, it sounds foreign. They're thinking, who is this dude? And how long before they leave too? That's when you realize you're not just teaching music or leadership, you're reteaching hope. And that's the heavy part, because you have to model that every single day. You can't just tell students to trust you. You have to earn it through consistency. Show up, follow through, hold the line. Even when you're tired, even when it feels like nobody gets it, even when people misunderstand your intentions. That's the way of starting over. It's not about control. It's about healing a culture that's been bruised by instability. And here's what nobody tells you. Rebuilding culture means being misunderstood for a while. You'll get labeled as too strict or different or not like the last one. And you have to be okay with that to an extent. Because the payoff doesn't come instantly. Culture grows in the shadows. Through repetition, through time, through showing up. One day you look around and realize the same kids who used to push back are now leading others. They're using the language you taught them. They're protecting the standard you set. And then when it clicks, they weren't resisting you. They were testing if they could trust you. So yeah, starting over isn't easy. It's frustrating, it's emotional, and sometimes it's downright exhausting. But once you get through the storm, what's left is real. You get to see belief take root again. You get to watch a group of students transform from hesitant to proud. And realize that all those long nights, all those uncomfortable conversations, all that quiet persistence, it was worth it. Because now when you've built isn't fragile. It's stronger than anyone can do, or a program is stronger than it was when you took over. And that's the weight of starting over. It's heavy, but if you really love it, it's really worth the shot. Okay, let's get into the part nobody likes to talk about, but it's a reality, is the pushback. Because here's the truth. You can walk into a program with the best intentions, the best credentials, the best heart for the kids, and still get pushback. Not because you're wrong, not because you're a bad teacher, but because change is uncomfortable. And that's the part people outside the classroom often don't see. When you're a teacher, a director, or a coach, you're not just teaching your subject. You're building a culture, and that culture has to be stable, healthy, and consistent if kids are going to thrive. But here's the kicker. Culture takes time, and during that time, people will question you no matter what you do. The two font battle, this one thing. One, in every rebuild, the two fronts, not the two fonts. I've been on typing mode all day. It's like there's two types of fronts. The students. They will test the limits and compare everything of how it used to be. I experience this every day. We didn't do it this way. This guy did it this way. Why are we doing it this way? And they don't understand that sometimes the ways that used to be are not the best things that will help you, and they're pushback. Then there's the adults who either cheer you on or quietly resist because they liked the old way better. Sometimes it's louder than quiet. Neither front is the enemy. They're just responding to change. But it still feels very personal, especially when you're exhausted from giving it your all every day. And I want to speak directly to parents for a moment, because I know most of you love your kids and want the best for them. And I know it's hard to watch your child adjust to higher standards, stricter expectations, or a new director who doesn't do things the way you're used to. But here's the thing. When you hire a coach, a teacher, a band director, anybody, just in general, you are hiring an expert. You're trusting someone who's trained, experienced, and dedicated to not just their craft, but to your child's growth as a person. And the best thing you can do for your child, especially in a transition year, is to let the experts build a culture. That means don't undercutting the rules at home. Don't tell your kids, well, we didn't do it like that before. Don't stir drama on social media or second guess every decision. Because when you do that, you're not just undermining the expert. You're undermining your own child's chances at consistency and stability. It's like planting a tree and then shaking it every time the wind blows. It'll never grow strong roots that way. And children thrive on structure. Every parenting book says it. Every developmental psychologist says it. And every teacher knows it. But structure doesn't mean harshness. It doesn't mean control for control's sake. It means predictability. Predictability. Oh my gosh. Being predictable. There. I said it. Jesus. It means a safe container. Like where they know what's expected and what will happen if they meet or don't meet those expectations. In programs with high turnover, that predictability gets destroyed. The rules shift every year, the standards fluctuate, and kids stop believing adults will keep their word. So when a new teacher comes in and starts setting boundaries, it can feel like too much, but it's exactly what's being missing. Boundaries. And let's be honest, it's draining to constantly have to justify yourself. You're waking up early, staying late, planning rehearsals, managing logistics, protecting kids from behind the scenes chaos. And then you're also defending your decisions to people who don't see the whole picture. And that can feel isolating. It can make you second guess yourself. But here's the truth. I remind myself of pushback isn't always about me. It's about fear. It's about uncertainty. It's about people grieving the loss of the way it was. When I see it through that lens, it helps me stay patient. But it doesn't mean I compromise my standard. Like even policy, like every policy, every rule, every expectation I put in place as a new teacher and everything, and this goes for any new teacher, when you go into a new place, it's not about control. It's about care. We set rules because we care. Because if we didn't care about the kids, if we didn't care about what we want to do, then we just let the kids do whatever they want. And that's not what we want. However, like setting rules and expectations it's about protecting the kids' time, making sure rehearsals or classes or whatever you're trying to do are productive and safe. Teaching accountability, responsibility, and teamwork. Again, I just said it. If I didn't care, I let chaos run the show. I'd say yes to everything. I give out trophies for showing up late. But caring means saying no. It means saying, this isn't good enough yet. It means holding a line even when it's unpopular. Now, the parents who make the biggest difference aren't the ones who cheer the loudest at performances. They're the ones who quietly back the teacher's authority at home. This goes to any teacher, and we've seen this a lot lately. No matter the subject, we've seen a lot of teachers quit the profession because the parents don't back them up. They don't understand what's happening in the public education right now. Parents don't understand that one math teacher can be teaching 30 kids per class, and they can be teaching 7 classes of like that, 30 kids, 7 classes, and they only have maybe an hour to grade everything. Like, they don't understand that. They don't care, which is sad. It's like when a child complains, those parents say, you know what? Stick with it. The director knows what. It's like, this is what it should be. When a child complains about anything, like, as long as it's not real, like, emergency stuff, like, you know, the usual complaints, like, it's hard, this is too much. Like, as a parent, especially when my dad and my mom were around, and I'm glad they did this, they said, you know what? Stick with it. This is how you grow. And this is my personal story. When I was in drum corps, my first year, I forgot. Did I just turn 15? Yeah, I just turned 15. First year away from home, like that, all summer. If you don't know what drum and bugle corps is, it's like all summer long professional marching band style stuff. It's hard. It is really hard to do. And so what happens is, it was the third week of spring training is what we called it. So spring training during that time is you wake up at 7 in the morning, you rehearse from 8 to 12, lunch 12 to 1 to 5 is rehearsal, 5 to 6 is dinner, and 6 to 10 is rehearsal, and 10 to 11 is your like shower off, get up, and then to 11 to 7 a.m. is your sleep. So it's like that. And there was no Saturdays, Sundays off. It was a lot, but especially for a 15-year-old. And then I remember I called my dad and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. It's hard. I want to quit. What my dad told me at that time is like, he said, well, it's a long way. It's a long walk from where you are, buddy. So either you can start walking home or just deal with it. And I'm glad he'd say that. I'm glad that he didn't just go and said, I'm glad my dad didn't tell me that he was going to pull me out of that because it was hard. And it helped me grow up. It made me realize that I make decisions. I should finish whatever I do. And then you know what happened? At the end of the year, I wanted to come back. I did this for 4 years. So again, when a kid's complain sometimes, it's because it's hard, and that's part of life. And sometimes all you have to say is like, as a parent is like, you just have to tell them, stick with it. This is how you grow. That single sentence does more for a kid's resilience than any pep talk I could ever give at a rehearsal. So to any parent listening, know that we need you on our team. We're not shutting you out. We're not keeping secrets. We're trying to build something your child can be proud for a long time after they leave high school. But we can't do it alone. This goes for anything. This goes for anything for like your education. You want better schools? Help the teachers, help the unions, and show up to those board meetings. Because we can't do this alone. We need you to back us up at home, to model respect for the process, and to trust that even when it's uncomfortable, it's intentional. And I think sometimes people forget that teachers, we are humans. We have families. We have a home. This is a job. We love this job, but it doesn't mean that we are robots. We're not just delivering a service. We're living, breathing, emotionally invested people who care deeply about your kids. And when we're constantly undercut, second guessed, or accused of being too strict or something worse, it takes a toll on us. It's not that we can't handle feedback. We want it. Positive feedback or something that needs to be addressed. That's fine. But we also need to space to do the job you hire us to do. You wouldn't go into a surgeon's operating room and tell them how to hold the scalpel. You wouldn't want me as someone who's never done certain things of your job and tell you how to do your job, right? Like, you wouldn't walk into a construction site and tell the engineer how to pour concrete. The engineers don't pour concrete. I don't know why he went with that, but you know what I mean. For some reason in education, people feel comfortable micromanaging the experts on the field. And that's, you know why? Because people say, I was a student once. Just because you were a student once doesn't mean you know what teaching is about. Just because you watch Law and Order, it doesn't mean you're a detective. Just because you watch Grey's Anatomy doesn't mean that you know how to do operation. Just because you went to a hospital once doesn't mean you understand the ins and outs of human biology, anatomy, and all that it is. And this kind of behavior from parents is hurting the kids. They think they're helping, but they're actually hurting. Now, here's a real practical ways parents can help and guardians. Model respect for the teacher. Even if you disagree, discuss it privately. Don't vent on social media or in front of your child. Encourage resilience. Tell your child, this is new. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Stick with it. Volunteer constructively. Help with events, fundraisers, or logistics without trying to steer the program's direction. This goes, I've seen this, not just, some people are going to think I'm talking about my programs, but no, this is talking about everywhere I've gone. I've seen it in football. I've seen it in math. I've seen it in drama. It goes everywhere. But this is a thing that all parents should be listening to. And just the other part, give time. Real culture change takes at least 2 to 3 years to stabilize. Don't judge it after a few months. I'm telling you, what is the biggest thing when people say, when a new football coach is hired from a program that has been losing constantly? You always say, give it time. And you know what? 2 to 3 years, you will see the changes. Those 4 things alone can completely change the trajectory of every education system. And then why this matters. Why this matters. When parents and teachers work against each other, kids lose twice. They lose the stability of the classroom, or they lose it they lose it at the classroom, and they lose the trust that adults know what they're doing. But when parents and teachers work together, kids see consistency. They see adults modeling collaboration. They see that even when things are tough, the people around them believe in the same goal. That's how you build it. That's how you build any big program. It's just how you build it's not how you just build any program. You just build how you build a generation of responsible adults. So here's my promise to any parent listening. I don't know why. I'm not. This goes for, and this is like I'm speaking. I'm not going to speak for all teachers, but I'm pretty sure this is the same mentality every teacher has. I'm not here to control your kids. I'm here to care for them. I'm not here to erase traditions. I'm here to build traditions that last. I'm not here to make life harder. I'm here to make it meaningful. That's what real education does. That's what real leadership does. I don't expect blind loyalty. But I do ask for trust. Trust that the decisions we're making have your child's long-term well-being in mind. And if we get that trust, I can guarantee you your child will grow in ways far beyond the education and grades. They'll grow in confidence, responsibility, and resilience. The kind of skills they'll carry for the rest of their lives. Isn't that what we want? Build the future generation of leaders of this country. And at the end, I understand. Pushback isn't always personal. It just feels that way because we care so much. But anybody, if you're listening, we're in the same team. We both want your kids to thrive. The best way you can help is by letting the experts create the culture they need. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about rules or policies. It's about the students. And students deserve adults who work together to give them stability, consistency, and a chance to believe in something bigger than themselves. And before I was going to read this, let's say read. When I was thinking about this part, I had to step back and breathe because this is personal. Because our profession as teachers is always under attack, no matter where you go. We're always the first ones to be questioned. Every time, no matter where you go. And that's a problem. It takes a lot of that. And if you ever seen the TikToks, like you ever see like the happy TikTok teachers, those people are great, but they're not telling you the whole truth of what's going on as a teacher. I do love to see them and have some amazing ideas that they have, and I try to borrow those ideas from them because it's amazing. But they don't see what probably goes behind them, behind the camera. They don't see that. Because I bet you every teacher hits a point where you just sit in your car after school, engine off, hands on the steering wheel, and just breathe. Not because you're mad, not because you hate the job. We love to teach. But because you pour everything you have into something that most people will never really see. That moment, that silence, that pause, that's the cost of caring. And if you've been listening since the beginning of this episode, you already know where I'm at. Rebuilding takes patience. It takes grit. But it also takes a piece of you every single day. When people talk about teachers, they picture the classrooms, the lessons, and everything. They always picture like the elementary school stuff, where kids are clapping to songs and everything. But they don't see the reality of it. They don't see the 10 p.m. emails, the late night planning, the internal tug of war between wanting perfection and knowing you'll never get it, because there's no such thing as perfection. But as teachers, we are always held to the standard of perfection, no matter what. They don't see you sitting in front of a spreadsheet, trying to figure out why a bus invoice doesn't match the district quote, or how to explain to 80 teenagers why the trip they've been looked forward to might not happen this year because a vendor didn't return paperwork on time. They just see the product, the performance, the event, the grades, but not the hours of invisible labor that makes it look effortless. Teachers are the most underpaid profession ever. We are expected to work almost 24 hours, 7 days a week for a low wage. And we still come back and do it every day because we love to teach. And I hate this when parents and other principals said, well, it's for the kids. Yes, it is for the kids. Doesn't mean that I need to live in poverty. And then also, when you try to fix something broken, that invisible labor just doubles. Because you're not just teaching. You're re-establishing trust, rebuilding systems, rewriting habits, retraining expectations all at once. And let's talk about the emotional side for a second. People say, don't take it personally. But how do you not? When you spend months creating a structure to protect your students and someone accuses you of being controlling, that's personal. When you care enough to hold a kid accountable and they say you are mean, that hits. When you hear rumors that twist your intentions, that hurts too. Teachers don't build walls because we're cold. We build them because we have to keep showing up even where we are bleeding a little on the inside. It's not about ego. It's about survival. And still, we fucking stay. Because even in this fucking mess, there's purpose. For me, it's the small moments. That one rehearsal where everything finally clicks. The student who used to struggle showing up on time and now reminds others to be early, and they actually are leaders now. The kid who hands you a thank you note to say, you pushed me, but I needed it. I needed that extra push. Those moments feel like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. They don't erase the hard stuff, but they remind you why you're still fighting for it. Because the truth is, we don't stay in education for money. I wish we pay more. We should be having a livable wage, or recognition, or comfort. I don't give a crap about Teacher of the Year. I don't give a crap about all these little awards that they give. We stay because every once in a while you get to witness growth, real, unfiltered growth, and that is amazing to see, and it's magic. People always tell teachers, make sure you find balance. Fuck you. And I laugh, not because it's a bad advice, but because they say like balance is an option. The reality is, when you're building something fragile, balance isn't a straight line. It's a pendulum. Some weeks, the job gets 90% of you. Other weeks, you reclaim a little of for yourself. And that's okay. What matters isn't perfection, it's purpose. Balance doesn't mean equal. It means sustainable. It means knowing when to step back before the burnout turns permanent. If you're a teacher listening, protect your peace. Not by caring less, but by caring smarter. Document what matters. Stop apologizing for having boundaries. Say no without guilt. Because the truth is, a healthy teacher teaches better. A burnout teacher might still show up, but they stop shining. And kids feel that energy. And sometimes most professionals the most professional thing you can do is to close the laptop, take a walk, or spend an hour doing something that has nothing to do with school. That's not neglect, that's longevity. In this era of laptops and iPads and everything, people think that teachers need to be available 24/7. No, that's not how this works, guys. Just like any other job, if you work somewhere, you have a time you show up and a closing time, and you are expected to, and you want nobody to bother you about work. So why do you bother us when it's off on our weekends? Why is teaching the difference? Why are we the exception to the rule? Now I'm going back to the parents. This part is for you again. We're not asking for perfection from your kids. We're asking for partnership from you. When your child struggles, don't assume the teacher's out there to get them. Ask questions, sure, but ask with curiosity, not accusation. Because most of the time, we already worry about the same thing you are. We want your kids to succeed. We want them to feel seen, but we also want them to learn responsibility, accountability, and teamwork. And sometimes that means letting them fail safely. So when your child comes home upset because they got corrected or didn't get the solo, take a breath, don't rush to fix it, help them process it. Remind them that growth happens in discomfort. Because if we both respond with patience instead of panic, the kid learns resilience instead of resentment. Again, this is something I always learned. Just because someone else did something better than I did, doesn't mean that the person in front of me was trying to get me. It's because that person worked harder, or they were more talented, and I did my best, but I should have maybe done some changes. And I learned from that. This is a ripple effect of trust. When parents trust teachers, something beautiful happens. The tone of the whole community shifts. The gossip quiets down. Kids sense the unity and stop trying to play sides. Suddenly we're all rowing in the same direction. That's when programs start thriving again. Not because of new uniforms or shiny awards, but because adults chose collaboration over competition. And that's what culture really is. The collective behavior of the adults, mirror back through the students. There's this moment every year. It's different for every teacher. When you look around and realize we're finally getting there. It might be a perfect performance. It might be a quiet rehearsal where nobody complains. It might be just the sound of laughter after weeks of tension. That's the payoff. That's when you realize the hard conversations, the boundaries, and the consistency, they worked. And suddenly you're not fighting alone anymore. The students start fighting with you for the standard, for the pride, for the legacy. And when that happens, you finally exhale. You realize this is what rebuilding was always about. Not fixing a program, but restoring belief. And this is the bigger picture. Public education, especially arts education, has been under fire for years. Underfunded, misunderstood, and politicized every time. But at the core, the mission hasn't changed: to give kids a space to learn who they are and what they are capable of. That's why culture matters so much, because when a program has healthy culture, it becomes a safe place in a world that often isn't. It becomes the one thing a student can count on when everything else feels uncertain. And that's why I keep fucking showing up. That's why so many of us do. So yeah, pushback hurts. The turnover wears you down. The exhaustion is real. But every time I think about giving up, I picture the students who finally believe again. The ones who go from I can't to I did. The ones who carry that pride into adulthood. The ones who come back years later and say, you made me believe I was capable. That's why we stay. Because teaching isn't just a job. It's an act of faith. Faith that what you build will outlast the noise. Faith that the seeds you plant will keep growing long after you're gone. So every teacher out there rebuilding something broken, keep going. To every parent learning to trust the process, thank you. And to every student figuring out who they are inside that process, I see you. Change is messy, progress is slow, and leadership can be lonely. But when it finally comes together, when the culture shifts and the community starts to believe again, it's one of the most powerful feelings in the world. That's the reward of staying. Let's take a deep breath. That's part 3. When we come back next time, we're going to talk about what it means to rebuild, not just programs, but people. But how to keep that culture alive once it's healthy again. We'll figure that out. So, before I go any further in this episode, like in the closer reflections of this, I want to make something very, very, very clear. What I'm about to talk about, everything in this episode, is not about any one person, school, or situation. This isn't me calling anyone out, no one in particular. This is about the bigger picture. It's about patterns I've seen across years of teaching, about conversations I have with educators all over the country, people who love their students, who give everything they have, and who keep running into the same walls. So if you know me personally, somehow, or you're part of my community and you're listening, please understand this is not a personal critique. This is a reflection on a national issue. It's about what it's like to teach in America today. To walk into broken systems, to rebuild trust, and to hold up the line when everything around you is shifting. All right, let's talk about rebuilding people, not just the programs. When people talk about changing cultures, they usually think it's about rules or routines, starting rehearsals on time or like stuff like that, getting grades up, managing behavior. Yes, that's one part. But the real culture change is about something deeper. It's about rebuilding people. It's about teaching students, and sometimes adults, how to trust again, how to work together again, how to believe in something bigger than themselves. Because when a place has been unstable for too long, people forget what consistency feels like. They forget that structure can be a form of care. And that's the hardest part of rebuilding, reminding people that accountability and compassion can exist in the same space. After a while, you realize you're not really teaching your subject anymore. Like you're teaching life skills, patience, teamwork, discipline, resilience. Music, math, science, those are just the vehicles. The lessons underneath are always about the character. Every time you tell a kid, we're doing this again, but better, you're not nitpicking. You're showing them that excellence isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. And that mindset, that's the real curriculum. That's what they'll carry into jobs, relationships, and adulthood long before after your class is over. And when you take over a place that's had high turnover, you inherit more than students and schedules. You inherit so much trauma. Students who've learned not to attach, parents who've learned to question everything, colleagues who've learned to protect themselves. And you can't fix that overnight. You have to be consistent long enough for people to stop flinching when something changes. And that means sticking to the same expectations. That means being calm when others expect chaos. That means showing up every day even when you're tired, because reliability is the only way people relearn trust. That's rebuilding. Not through speeches, but through time. And consistency has a cost. It takes emotional labor, patience, and a lot of deep breaths. Sometimes you're the villain in the short term so you can be the mentor in the long term. Sometimes you have to make unpopular calls for the right reasons, knowing the reward might not come for months or years. And that's okay, because leadership isn't about being liked. It's about being steady. As teachers, we don't need to win every argument. We just need to keep showing the integrity doesn't bend with the wind. That's how kids learn that boundaries aren't barriers, they're safety nets. And one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see as a teacher is when the culture finally shifts and the students start policing the standards themselves. You'll hear things like, hey, that's not how we do things here, or come on, let's get it right. And you realize it's finally worked. You didn't just build compliance, you built the ownership of the program. They're not doing it because they're afraid of getting in trouble. They're doing it because they care. That's when you know you move from enforcing rules to inspiring pride. And again, to the parents listening, I want to say this again. We are not against you. We are on your team. Every decision we make, even the tough ones, come from the same place, wanting what's best for your students. When you back us up at home, even when it's uncomfortable, you're not surrendering your voice, you are reinforcing stability. You're showing your child that authority and compassion can coexist. You're teaching them to respect process, even when they don't like it. And that collaboration, that's what help kids grow up in balance, not fearful of rules, but understanding why the rules exist. I think a lot of people wonder why teachers stay, especially now, when the workload is heavier and the appreciation feels thinner. The answer is kind of simple, even if it's not easy. Because somewhere in all that chaos, there are kids who still care. Kids who still light up when something clicks. Kids who say thank you when you push them to do better. Kids who don't need perfection, just presence. Those are the moments that recharge you. They're quiet, but they matter more than any paycheck or headline. And that's what keeps us showing up. Not because the system's perfect, because the kids still deserve people who refuse to give up on them. And in a world that undervalues teachers, staying in it's its own kind of rebellion. Every time you choose patience over quitting, you're resisting the burnout culture. Every time you choose kindness over bitterness, you're resisting cynicism. Every time you choose to rebuild instead of walk away, you're resisting hopelessness. That's what makes teaching revolutionary. Not in a political sense, but in a human one. Because every lesson, every rehearsal, every moment of grace is an act of defiance against a world that says good enough is good enough. We're not here to settle. We are here to build. And at the end of the day, this episode, all of it, it's about something much bigger than one school or one experience. It's about the truth that every teacher in America knows deep down. That we are trying to fix systems that we didn't break. That we're trying to heal communities while still being blamed for their wounds. That we're trying to create something lasting in a world that values temporary results. And still, we show up. Because teaching isn't about control. It's about legacy. It's about planting seeds we might never see bloom. So if you're still listening, whether you're a teacher, a parent, a student, or just someone trying to understand what we do, I hope this episode helped you see the heart behind the work. We're not perfect. We're not saints. We're people trying to hold together something that matters. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that what teachers go through isn't personal frustration. It's a national story. And every educator I've talked to across this country has said the same thing in different words. We love what we do. We just wish people trusted us to do it. That's all this episode is about. Trust. Trusting the experts to build a culture. Trusting the process to work. Trusting that even when it feels uncomfortable, growth is happening. So if you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. Let the experts do their work. Support them. Believe in them. Because every strong community starts with teachers who are trusted and parents who choose to stand beside them, not against them. Again, thank you so much for listening. This is Off the Record. And this one isn't about one school, one situation, or one teacher. It's about all of us. Teachers, parents, students, and what it means to rebuild together in a country that desperately needs to remember the value of trust. Stay safe, be smart. I'll see you next time.